made a famous sex tape 'cause her hobby's getting laid. She blew her way through Hollywood and it only took a day. Heard she f***ed a guy in Reno just 'cause she's a slut.
Never had time to really get to know myself. I always put all my energy into the man.
That's that hose hound Paris Hilton who can't keep her toothpick leg shut.
That's hot.
Now she's going to prison. I hope they throw away the key. When you're a no-talent heiress, you get no sympathy with no ass and no boobies. A hot chick I don't see.
I don't get to spend time on me, so now I'm just getting to know who I really am.
Jail will only make her more famous, and that really bothers me.
I want to do a really hot performance.
Well, now a little religious discussion. Yeah, on one hand, everyone makes that argument where they go, hey, you don't want religion? Would you rather be walking down the alley and have some atheists on the other side of it, or walking down a dark alley and have some Christians? Well, every guy on death row, there's no atheists in the joint.
Right.
And most of them grew up sort of God-fearing, or at least in environments that stress that.
And they say there are no atheists in foxholes, that's for certain.
Right.
When the bombs start going off.
I like atheists. And the notion that, well, if you're an atheist, how do you know right from wrong? Hey, if you're not a scientist, how do you know gravity?
Yeah, how do you know left from right? Well, I'm not a chimp, that's how.
I know right from wrong, just like I know gravity. If I drop an apple, it'll land on the ground. I don't have to be Newton to understand that. It just is. It's empirical. I don't like when people do that. Oh, no. No, you can go ahead and fornicate with your wife's, neighbor and your neighbor and kill everyone and covet their oxen and their wife and everyone else. I think certain things are just truths that we should understand. And I agree with part of the things that Christopher Hitchens' book says, which is you create religions, it is a team. You pick a team, and now your team has to go crush the other team.
Well, his book is called God is Not Great, How Religion Poisons Everything.
He's on the line now. Christopher Hitchens?
Hello there. How nice of you to ask me.
Wow, you sound like David Bowie.
Goodness me.
I like that.
I do, too.
Not that goodness has anything to do with it.
But Christopher, can you just say, just to humor us, can you just say this line, Ziggy played guitar?
Well, ground control to Major Tom.
Good enough. Well, it turns out we're actually talking to Lennox Lewis.
Or Suffragette City.
Yes.
Right. Well, Christopher's a very well-known writer. He's written for Vanity Fair. He's written for a bunch of publications and has a lot of books.
So are you...
and a few great albums.
Are you an atheist yourself, Christopher Hitchens?
No, I'm an anti-theist. In other words, you can be an atheist and just because you can't believe it, but you might wish it was true.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't wish it was true. I was just listening to what you were saying before. I don't like the idea of a celestial dictatorship that would be watching you while you slept.
Right.
And wouldn't leave you alone even when you were dead. I mean, I really am glad there's no evidence at all.
An anti-theist. I've never heard that term before.
I do like that, and I'm with you as well. I just say atheist for the most part, just so people leave me alone. But I am not a fan of everyone's make-believe God, and I believe it because I'm licensed to do a lot of things. And I love when people make their counter-argument where you go, where's your proof there's a God? And they go, where's my proof? How would all this have gotten here if there was no God? And I was like, oh, that's a great scientific argument. An invisible man invented it all.
Is the argument always scientific? I mean, there is the word and the idea of faith. What about faith? Doesn't that come in somewhere?
Faith is the wonderful, even the no less wonderful
faith,
idea that
sure.
You should believe something because there's no evidence.
Well, faith is good for the Easter Bunny, too.
That's the answer. Faith is the answer to the invisible man question. It says, I believe it because there's no evidence for it at all. You have to just take it on faith. Well, fine. But don't ask me to respect that.
Right.
Or allow it to influence legislation, for example, or demand any taxpayers' money for it. I mean, tooth fairy people are fine also.
Right.
We don't have any huge regard for them. At least they don't come round to your house, and they don't blow themselves up at the airport either.
I agree. We don't ask anyone to take anything on faith in this society except for this one incident. And here's, Christopher, you tell me whether you agree with this next statement or not. I don't believe that people believe nearly as much as they say they believe. And the reason I don't believe that is everyone talks about having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ or Allah or whoever. But if you ever hear somebody say, oh, God spoke to me and I spoke to God, you go, that guy's nuts.
That guy's a nut.
Now, why would you say that's nuts in a society where we believe that everyone has a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? And then secondly, why are you getting so violently angry when I tell you I don't believe in your God? You don't believe in him that much either. There's a little kernel in your brain that realizes I'm probably right, and that's why you want to kill me. Because you can't stand the voice of logic who's destroying your fairy tale.
But on the other hand, isn't there a kernel somewhere in the back of your brain that I believe I've heard you mention before that I don't want to say that because what if I'm wrong?
No, I just say that. I don't believe it. I don't believe most people believe it.
I don't just think you're right. I could almost say I knew you were right. I mean, I've been on tour with this book of mine. By the way, talking of factual evidence, available at fine bookstores everywhere.
That's right. That's a fact. God is not great.
And number one on the bestseller list at the moment, so you better hurry to get a copy.
That's right.
Which has the answers to all the things we're just touching on now. But I've been hawking it around the South in particular. I wanted the book tour to be in the Southern States to start with. You find everyone believes in a different version of the Bible there.
Well, sure. Nobody can read it.
This is a very a la carte society. When someone has a bumper sticker, which you do sometimes see, saying, Jesus is my best friend, you first think hypothetic, and second you think, well, it means that he's made up his own version.
Right.
They all of them have. It's absolutely not true that more Americans believe in Satan than believe in Darwin.
Well, when I say Jesus is my best friend, I immediately mean my bar tab has been cut in half, which is, that's a good buddy.
I've done the math on, I grew up in a family with no religion, not because they were making a moral statement. It's just church would have involved getting up, getting dressed, and going somewhere as a family, and the Carollas weren't down for that. Church and religion is something, and my family's into nothing. So we didn't want to burn any calories with religion, but also there were people who were rational and realized, look, if you grew up in a Muslim society, you'd be Muslim. If you grew up in a Jewish society, you'd be Jewish. And if you grew up in a Catholic society, you'd be Catholic. So does that make it true? Just the fact that you were born into this group? Well, if my parents were both devout Christians, then I'd be Christian.
That's also the easiest proof of what my book proposes, which is the religion is man-made.
Right.
And it shows. It shows, in other words, that it's invented by a species that's only half a chromosome away from the chimpanzees, as we now know.
Well,
because it is man-made, there are hundreds of versions of it, and over time there have been thousands of versions of it. And H.L. Mencken once did a list of how many gods there have been in human history. It goes on for a very long time, and all of them had complete authority for a while.
Well, can I float you two theories, and I'll give you one, and you can respond to it. Tell me what you think. My personal theory is, when we found out we were the only species that really knew of our own mortality, we had to think up something quick or go insane. The very first human being that saw a loved one, a colony member, a family member get eaten by a dinosaur said, this is way too painful to deal with. Right. Plus, I have to think about me getting eaten by a dinosaur or grizzly bear. I better come up with something quick, otherwise we'll go nuts.
Of course, there's another book that says the first guy.
I hate to do this to you, but only creationists believe that we were still around when the dinosaurs were.
Well, you know what I mean.
In the Bible, of course, Cain kills Abel with the jawbone of an ass.
By the way, it's very noticeable that in Genesis there's no mention of any dinosaurs, because, of course, they didn't know there'd ever been any. There were no kangaroos in there either, or microorganisms either.
I'm just going back in time to use a little hyperbole.
I know exactly what you mean. Religion doesn't die out for that reason. It only mutates because people are still going to be afraid of death, yes.
Well, it's useful.
The fact of the matter is that I don't think just because, and maybe you're right, religion is man-made, but I drove here in a Nissan today. Mm-hmm. And it's man-made, and it got me to work.
Sure.
So it doesn't mean it doesn't exist just because it's been made by man. Man could be in need of something that it turned out existed. Man's in need of an afterlife so he doesn't go insane. That doesn't mean he was wrong. It means he has a 50-50 shot.
Well, I don't know if it means 50-50.
Your analogy doesn't hold at all. By the way, I didn't think your bar tab one did either, if you don't mind my saying so.
But the Gene Genie wasn't a good song.
You can prove that, not only prove the Nissan, you can design it, whereas you can only wish for an afterlife. You're not going to get one.
But what Danny, I believe, is saying is, it could be both. We could want it very badly, and it could exist.
Yeah.
Well, wanting it wouldn't disprove it. That's certainly true.
Right.